wife's waffle iron to invent better shoes. The brand that emerged from his experiments made running look cool and fashionable through their marketing campaigns. The boom was also fueled by broader social and cultural trends, like the counterculture movement. Individualism and self-expression were a thing now, and running was part of it, a way of personal empowerment and liberation. Running clubs offered community and camaraderie, and the whole movement was against consumerism. That kind of aged like milk, but okay. We're getting ahead of the story. While the Nike waffle trainer became iconic, marathons were starting to go mainstream, sort of. In 1976, the New York City Marathon celebrated the US bicentennial by changing the course from a Central Park loop to a route through all 5 boroughs. It was a huge success with more than 1,500 finishes and a ton of media attention, so they made it the official course. After the first great boom, things went quiet for a while, until the second boom in the early 2000s. Paula Radcliffe broke the world record, and more women were taking up running. It was still about health, but now also about goals. People were training for 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, buying heart rate monitors and logging miles on Excel spreadsheets. And it wasn't just athletes anymore. Middle-aged accountants, soccer moms, tech bros and early Google shots. Races became bucket list items. The New York Marathon ballooned to over 37,000 finishers by 2006. And the brands? They were ready. Nike, Asics and Brooks launched lines specifically aimed at the serious amateur. Runners who trained like pros, but still had to pick up the kids after work. Shoes got more cushioned. Watches got GPS.
Okay, Garmin.
Someone invented invented a hydration belt with tiny bottles. And non-profits gave people a mission. You weren't just running 42 kilometers, you were raising money to cure cancer. Suddenly, your marathon had a story. And stories sell. So by 2006, you had 37,000 finishers in New York. Back then, the entry fee was $117, so the fees alone already added up to more than 4 million. But in 2025, New York had a record of over 59,000 finishers. And they made $49 million with entry fees. So what happened in between? The third running boom that nobody saw coming. This time, it was not so much about health and personal goals, but more about the vibes. Powered by Gen Z, especially women. And it's bigger, younger, and more diverse than anything the sport has ever seen. Take the London Marathon. For 2026, more than 1 million people entered the ballot. Nearly double from just 2 years earlier. Most people will tell you the reason is simple. The pandemic. And sure, suddenly everyone was at home, gyms closed, social lives wiped out. Running became the easiest way to stay active when everything else disappeared. It offered structure when life didn't. And recent research showed running might be more effective than pills for depression. But the pandemic was just the spark. The real boom didn't hit until 2023, when Gen Z really started to embrace it. And social media poured gasoline on everything. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, running transformed into a whole aesthetic. Even gym bros are running now, because everyone wants to be a hybrid athlete. So people who were already passionate about sports also discovered their passion for running as another part of their training routine. And unlike other sports, running had its own dedicated platform behind the boom. Strava. Part training log, part social network, part accountability machine. Instead of likes, you get kudos, you can create these funny graphics with your run logs, and crucially, it's where people organize run clubs. And run clubs are the secret source of the third running boom. Run clubs are apparently the new Tinder. There's even a dress code. Wear blue socks to signal that you're ready to mingle. While work from home killed a lot of old social infrastructure, running filled the gap. Run clubs became the new third space, the place between home and work where people actually meet. But they probably also became the unofficial birthplace of many startup ideas. Some of the best ideas hit you during a run. You know how it goes. Mile 12 hits and suddenly you're like, wait, this could actually be a business. If that happens to you, great, because today's sponsor was basically made for moments like this. Shopify is the all-in-one commerce platform that lets you set up a store faster than it takes to warm up for a 5K. You can customize it, take payments, track inventory, ship orders. But I don't know a thing about business. Don't worry about that. If you can use your GPS watch, you can use Shopify. Plus, it's scalable if your side hustle suddenly goes viral. Some of the fastest growing running brands are built on Shopify, including Bandit, Endorphins, and On Running. So whether you're a run club thinking about merch, a creator turning your marathon journey into a business, or just someone with a wild idea from your last runner's high, Shopify makes it happen. We also use it ourselves to sell these mystery socks. Rumor has it they boost your dating odds at your local run club and make you faster than Eliud Kipchoge, but no promise. Check out shopify.com/athlete. Interest, or the link in the description, and build your links. Show off them. Medal and post the video. And when that gets too easy, there's always something more extreme. Running 100K in the desert on ice. Or, if you really want to flex, climbing Mount Everest, where the line to the summit is now so long it looks like a queue at Disney World. And in the middle of all this, marathons turned into massive businesses. Which brings us to the key questions. How do they actually make money? And why are they so expensive? Let's stick to our example, the New York City Marathon, the world's biggest, most expensive, and most influential race. It started with 55 runners paying $1. Today, Marathon Weekend is one of the most profitable weekends of the year for New York. Tens of thousands of runners, plus their families, fly in from all over the world. They stay, eat, shop, take photos, and create a wave of spending across the city. According to a study commissioned by the organizers, their races generated almost $1 billion for New York. That's about as much as one Super Bowl does for the host city. The organizers, the New York Road Runners, a non-profit organization, made $170 million in revenue. So how does a marathon make that kind of money? First, entry fees. In 2024, they made almost $50 million from race entry fees alone. That is a huge number, but they can't scale it. You can't just allow 200,000 people to run through Brooklyn. Capacity is capped at roughly 50 to 60,000 runners, which is why only 2 to 3% of applicants got in for 2025. Of course, you can increase prices, but they are already quite high. And you don't want to provoke a Gen Z community that learned how to start a shitstorm from the cradle.
Bago kumagat, mag-Polygant Adhesive Cream.
So if entry fees can't grow, what does? The other engine of the business? Corporate partnerships brought in $50.52 million, almost half of the total revenue. TCS, MasterCard, New Balance, Gatorade, Strava. Companies are putting their logos everywhere they could be seen, because they get guaranteed. Visibility, global audience, and a brand-safe environment. But they are also buying access, prestige, content, hospitality, and thousands of bits they can give to employees, clients, and influencers. And then there's all the free stuff. Brands provided almost $10 million worth of non-cash contributions. Clothing, shoes, and equipment. You can see a bunch of that stuff at the so-called Expo. That's where every starter has to pick up their bips, passing through a massive retail event where brands like New Balance launch exclusive collections and pop-up stores. These activations generate millions in sales for brands. And yes, the organizers charge for that space too. Now, before the Mamdani fans among you rightfully call out that this seems to be all about consumerism, there's also the charity program. Over the last 20 years, New York's charity partners have raised $600 million through the marathon community. Runners who don't get in through the lottery can secure a guaranteed spot if they raise anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 for charity. It's good for nonprofits, good for the city, and another reason demand keeps climbing. If you now wonder how much the executives get, the CEO earns roughly $500,000. But he's also responsible for almost 1,000 full-time employees. So why is your BIP so expensive? Of course, more demand means higher prices. But also because organizing a marathon is insanely expensive. In 2024, the organizers spent $111 million on expenses. For road closures, police and security, medical teams, transport. transportation, stuff, time. Timing systems, live broadcast, insurance, and enough water, gels, and bananas to feed an army.
Why the French catapult their aircraft faster than Americans is not by choice, and it's not what you think. The French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle uses two catapults which are in fact American-built and allow the ship to launch a 25-ton aircraft in just under 2 seconds at a speed of 145 knots. The thing is, the flight deck of Charles de Gaulle is 27% shorter than its American counterparts, so that also impacted the catapults. At only 246 feet long, these catapults are significantly shorter than the 310-foot-long catapults on the American supercarriers. This means that the aircraft launched from Charles de Gaulle have to be accelerated faster, which is why they experience 4 to 5 Gs of acceleration compared to American pilots that undergo 3 to 4 Gs during takeoff. Why the French catapult their aircraft?
You would never want to climb into this plane. From the moment it was designed, there was no return trip. It felt like putting a person inside a rocket. Why would anyone build something like that? Its name was Oka, made by Japan late in World War II. It had only one purpose, to crash straight into enemy warships. It couldn't take off on its own. It had to be carried under a bomber. When it got close to the target, it was released. First, it glided. Then, once it was close enough, the pilot pushed pushed a button. The rocket in the back ignited. The plane was shoved forward, accelerating hard. The rocket only burned for about 10 seconds. After that, the end came fast. The fuselage was very short, not even as long as a city bus. The wings were mostly made of wood. Almost all the weight was packed into the nose. That's where a massive bomb sat. It didn't fly very far, so the bomber had to get really close, but the bomber was slow and easy to spot. Many Okas were shot down with their mother planes before they were even released. If you knew how it would end, would you get inside? You would never want to climb into this plane. From the moment it was designed, there was no return trip. It felt like putting a person inside a rocket. Why would anyone build something like that? Its name was Oka, made by Japan late in World War II. It had only one purpose: to crash straight into enemy warships. It couldn't take off on its own. It had to be carried under a bomber. When it got close to the target, it was released. First, it glided. Then, once it was close enough, the pilot pushed a button. The rocket in the back ignited. The plane was shoved forward, accelerating hard. The rocket only burned for about 10 seconds. After that, the end came fast. The fuselage was very short, not even as long as a city bus. The wings were mostly made of wood. Almost all the weight was packed into the nose. That's where a massive bomb sat. It didn't fly very far, so the bomber had to get really close, but the